Before I play the usual second song, the word for now is focus. Focus on what's real and what clearly isn't. As the alt media delves into the pits of clickbait headlines, a cesspit of stupidity and irresponsibility, littered with fear and doom porn of "we're all gonna die of 5G", which is the latest fear-laden drama to focus and hold your attentions. Much like the chemtrails previously, or CERN, H1N1, Ebola, throw in Nibiru, Yellowstone came up again, the sun's going to die, or send radiation and the pole shifts. Shake them all up and they always come back round, just like the BBC at Christmas, repeat after repeat after repeat. But none of those things previously put out in the ultimate doom moments worked as planned, did they? None of them. So why is 5G any different? 1/3 of the earlier questions this week was all asking about 5G, ignoring the fact that I've answered it several times. But you have to look at where your attention is going. Those promoting these type of clickbait headlines, why are you bothering with them? Is that all you want to hear about, that we're all going to die? Fine if you do. Don't be surprised if nothing makes sense to you. When you drag yourself through the mire of the finished and corrupted alt media, there's not much left. There is the few trying their best, but it's become needle in a haystack stuff, as largely the alt media's knowledge base is pre-2014. In fact, it's stuck there permanently. No one is saying 5G is great, but history suggests it will be nowhere near as harmful either. You have to ask the question, do the cabal have anti-5G pills to take? Is there a magic potion? Why won't they suffer the same as everyone else? Brexit descended into the chaos and delays I predicted on the actual election night of Brexit, an all too predictable happening from my perspective, and the same applies with the wall in America. More distraction. I'll repeat again, you will make no sense of what is being said across the alt media. Very few have anywhere near the real truth. The tweets, various tweets, including the top tweets, are a complete waste of time or trying to understand what they're getting across. They are now propaganda pieces, and propaganda works both ways. And the less said about the portal people news, the better. Pure folly listening to anything of what they're currently saying. A spin machine of bullshittery in overload permanently now until something changes. This show does not speculate unless it's said so. Some clown yesterday decided to post a government shutdown Trump plan. Now, if that was a real plan, that idiot just ruined it and put many people's lives at risk at the same time. Imagine if that was the real plan. New plans would now require many weeks or months to come up with a new plan and potentially ruin all the plans. So to the idiots on YouTube and others who think outing plans, whether valid or otherwise, are beyond stupid. This is war, you complete retards. Get used to it and start to understand what is going on here. You're putting people's lives at risk, and it's beyond retarded, that level of thinking. Now you all know why the Trust chose me to present the information, because I'm responsible with and for it. I put stuff out when safe to do so. I will not discuss plans. operations or answer insider questions, as that is irresponsible. This show is for your benefit, not mine. I know what's going on. Think and act different is the mantra. You've got media people complaining, oh, these poor people not getting paid because that nasty man Trump caused the shutdown. I didn't hear them complain when unemployment was high, or people getting paid poverty wages, or the vast amounts of wasted by bureaucracy, or the missing 23.5 trillion out of the DoD account. Or what about the lack of pay and support for the veterans? No. The government shuts down and suddenly the people think, ooh, the poor people. Please spare us the bullshit. You're not interested in the people. Otherwise you wouldn't peddle drama-laden lies and distortions every single time you open your mouths on every single channel. And I mean every channel. Their system is collapsing whilst they run around distracting and pushing Stockholm Syndrome narratives. The old days were the best, they said. No, it was an illusion. The old days are just the same as they are now, except now you are more aware of it than then. That's the only difference. Our show has proven consistently that we have what is real and what is not by now. To the new members, of which there are many of you, you will see that as well over time. Stay tuned here, as elsewhere now, their song always remains the same. Utter bullshit, fear porn and distraction. Hi all, welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. I thought I had to get that piece out before we really started because we have to focus. Things are on fire at the moment, literally, in more ways than one, and we have to focus ourselves into a better mode, a concentration mode of what is really going on, how you can help, and also how you can put yourself in a 45-55 state. You're going to require it. We will have a rather heavy, extensive and earth-shaking intel sometime in the second hour, and if you haven't focused by then, you will after that. Right, let's get into the gist of the show. The links, if you want to listen live to this show, it's every Thursday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And it's Spreaker.com/user/895-5881. You can also listen live on our website, which is thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. Michael has reorganised that website, so things are a bit easier to find this week, including the must listen to shows, which is a series of 10 or 11 shows. That does not include the Kim shows. That's in its own category now. The Kim and the Man of World Holding Trust shows are all in its own category, plus the guest appearances I've had on different shows, Randy's and OYM's and others. So there's also articles of self-empowerment, grounding, centering and shielding, which is essential at this time. We have the Facebook page, Truth, Honour and Integrity, and the Facebook social media alternative at MeWe.com. You can also find us on YouTube, the Tommy Williams channel, and we have the People's Club website, which is the foundation that's linked to this show, and that's at thepeoplesclub.org. I have my Patreon, and thanks to all who have contributed again this month. and that's at patreon.com/TommyW/memberships. All the transcripts of the Intel and op-ed pieces are posted on there, generally a week after, so you can all go and review them. And the email for the show finally is truth.honor.and.integrity@gmail.com. We're going to go into news items, and I'll try to get through some of the questions. Some of them defy belief, I have to say, including one email who sent me 43 questions. I don't know anything I'm getting all the time from to answer all them, but we'll get through some of them. Sales of newly built homes fell 18% in December compared to last year, and this is a sign of the times. And this was according to research done by a California-based housing research and analytics firm, and they, of course, or the media, use the typical spin: it's because of the partial government shutdown, which is utter drivel. They're blaming everything for that now. It's the new Russia, it seems. And sales were down a steep 19% annually in November, and the firm counts 373 different market ratings by local builders that oversee more than 3,500 new home communities, which is estimated to be 16% of the US new home sales. Now, these figures correlate closely with the government readings of new home sales that took a hit as mortgage rates rose sharply at the start of autumn, and putting further stress on the market where prices have been overheating for the past 2 years. And I think the 4.5% plus mortgage rate is a double whammy, according to the CEO of the analytics firm JBRC, and it's keeping entry-level buyers out of the market. There's a lot more reasons than that, that's a certainty. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis this week removed the Broward Sheriff Scott Israel from office last Friday, replacing him after 10 months of turmoil spawned by the slaughter of 17 staff and students in Parkland, the Parkland school. We have covered Mr. Israel in some pieces previously, in previous shows earlier last year, and this is an interesting move for those who are familiar with Broward County corruption, and also Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Perhaps there'll be more than that. Now, the governor was replaced with former Coral Springs Police Sergeant Gregory Toney, who has a background in active shooter training and becomes the first black sheriff in Broward County's history. And he announced the suspension from the Broward Sheriff's Office headquarters. DeSantis said while displacing the former sheriff, he prepared a response from a black church in northwest Fort Lauderdale. And the suspension caps nearly a year-long series of revelations that exposed the failure of Broward Sheriff's deputies to run in and save the children at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. They didn't run in because they were told to stand down. We all know why. Now, it also came to light that some deputies couldn't remember when they last had been trained to handle an active shooter, even though the agency had confused, the agency had asked for it and just got ignored. I wonder why. All set up nicely, as you remember. And Israel's leadership of the agency had come under intense scrutiny, and he's received extra criticism over the massacre in which 17 people were killed and wounded on Valentine's Day. Nice ritual. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged men to unite against rape and sexual assault in the country, calling it a national crisis. Women were being raped and killed on a continuous basis, and he said it was time to end the gender-based violence. He said he made his impassioned plea while launching an election manifesto for governing African National Congress. Now, there are some 40,000 rapes that are reported, and a lot more that don't, every year in South Africa, and they suspect that this is only a fraction of the real total. And the president asked men in the packed Durban Stadium, where tens of thousands of supporters watched his speech, to stand to show their condemnation. The emancipation of women requires a change in attitudes and material conditions that perpetuate the oppression and marginalisation of women. And he went on to announce he had outlined a number of measures to achieve this, including harsher sentences for perpetrators and better skilled police and prosecution authorities. That would be interesting to observe, given some of the antics of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and their efforts at stopping that or adding to it, as the case may be. And also to improve the capacity to investigate and prosecute all crimes. Hope that applies to politicians over there. Be a nice thing to start off with. And it's important that children learn from a young age to respect one another as equals and not resort to violence in situations of stress and conflict. Exactly. Sometimes you wonder, or I wonder, why I'm doing this show and being involved in the trust, when you hear of incidents of this level of stupidity. The police in the state of Utah this week have taken the unusual step of urging residents not to drive blindfolded. Really. After an online challenge inspired by a horror film led to a crash. A teenager with a hat over her eyes drove into oncoming traffic in the city of Layton, Utah, while taking part in the so-called Bird Box Challenge. Eating Tide Pods, and now let's drive blind. The craze, for those who don't know, came from the Netflix film Bird Box. And last week, Netflix had to put out a warning to not attempt the challenge. Really. And this week, the same advice came from Layton Police Department, where they said it's just inexcusable to do something as dangerous as this, not only to yourself, but everyone else on the road. And this was according to Police Lieutenant Travis Lyman. He said it was a warning he never thought he would have to give. Don't drive blindfolded. Oh my word. It's some people are just beyond stupid, really. Democrats said two bombshell reports from the New York Times and the rogue Washington Post, in fact both of them are, regarding Donald Trump and Russia have raised concerns. Go figure. Washington Post and New York Times don't like Donald Trump. Oh my. I wonder why. Meanwhile, their Republican counterparts downplayed the new report and asked Americans to consider instead the president's actions on Russia. You know, there's been so many questions raised. Democrat Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois said this week, why is he so chummy with Vladimir Putin? This man is a former KGB agent. Have you ever heard anything so childish in all your life? So what these clowns are saying, a world leader cannot speak to another world leader. This is playground stuff. And he accused Putin of never being a friend to the United States. Mr. Durbin really needs to learn history, given Russia saved the United States twice in previous wars. Oops. They've invaded our allies, really. Ukraine are not our allies. Threaten us around the world, really, not quite. And tries his damnedest to undermine our elections, which is complete and utter BS. And why is President Trump his best buddy? Who says he is? On Friday, the Times reported that Trump's firing of former FBI Director James Comey triggered a counterintelligence investigation into whether the president was working to advance Russia's interests. Beyond a joke. It will get worse. PG&E Corporation Chief Executive Officer Geisha Williams is leaving as California's largest utility owner nears potential bankruptcy. This is Rothschild's owned. Now, the San Francisco-based company has begun a search for a new CEO following Williams' departure, and the PG&E General Counsel John Simon will take the helm in the meantime. Williams, who is 57, only took over as CEO in March of 2017 and is leaving after a catastrophic 3 months for PG&E. And catastrophic being the operative word. She said, I valued the opportunity I had to lead PG&E and I wish all my colleagues well. Now, the company has seen 2/3 of its market value wiped out since November's Camp Fire, the deadliest wildfire in California's history, and investigators have been probing whether the power giant's equipment ignited the fire, along with its potential liability for blazes that devastated Northern California's wine country in 2017. We'll have more about the wine country later. And the costs that may tally up to as much as $30 billion, and its debt has been downgraded to junk status, and state regulators have called for a management shake-up. How about dragging in the Rothschilds and dealing with them? How the world is changing on a global financial scale. By 2030, 7 of the world's top 10 economies will be the current emerging markets. And this is according to a latest report by a London-based multinational banking and financial services company, and also known child traffickers, Standard Chartered, money launderers, child trafficking, etc., etc. Now, the long-term projection shows that India is likely to become larger than America, whilst neighbouring China will reportedly steal the crown of the world's most powerful economy by as soon as 2020. All as planned 30 to 40 years ago. In fact, really as planned 107 years ago, to be precise. At the same time, Indonesia may bring into the top 5 economies. I would suggest not. It's not going to go the way they think in that place. And India will most likely be the main mover with its trend growth accelerating to 7.8% by the 2020s, partly due to ongoing reforms, including the introduction of a national goods and services tax and also the Indian Bankruptcy Code. GST, one of the largest tax reforms, is to be implemented by Delhi, and that was rolled out last year, and the measure is aimed at simplifying the country's cumbersome tax regime. Maybe we'll follow suit. We'll see. The IBC, which was launched in 2016, consolidates the bankruptcy and insolvency laws in India, and the UK firm noted that the ageing population is set to have a significant impact on global growth, except in India, which is currently ranked as the world's sixth biggest economy. They will remain unfazed as the country has the world's largest group of young people. Nearly half of the Indian population, which is about 1.3 billion, are under the age of 25. Mass migration. EU leaders are preparing to delay Brexit. Really? Well, I never. Now it's being pushed back to July or possibly longer if the UK Parliament cannot agree a deal, which will never happen. Brussels is reportedly expecting the British government to ask for an extension to Article 50, allowing Theresa May more time to get a no deal through Parliament. Mrs May was expected to lose the Commons vote on her withdrawal deal on Tuesday, and she lost it heavily, which raised the prospect of a no-deal departure, which is now not going to happen. Brexit could be postponed now even longer if a general election or a second referendum takes place. It's just beggars belief. A judge in Baltimore, Maryland, also a sign of the times, has made the decision to move forward in a $1 million lawsuit against Johns Hopkins University, Bristol Myers Squibb and the Rockefeller Foundation for their role in a 1940s US government experiment. Now, the decision highlights the darker side of many of our modern medications companies, and the decision is for the 444 victims and their families who are suing those involved in an experiment in Guatemala that was kept hidden until 2010. Now, the experiment was conducted, according to them, which is utter BS as we all know, to understand the treatment and prevention of STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, specifically focused on the effectiveness of then the new drug called penicillin. And when the test was uncovered by a professor at Wellesley College in Massachusetts, President Barack Obama called the Guatemalan president personally to offer a sincere apology. Now, the lawsuit was first filed and dismissed last year. However, following the recommendations of a US district judge, Marvin Garbus, the victims' attorneys have refiled, and that's now going ahead. Experimenting on children. Unbelievable. Signs of the Chinese investment into America has almost completely vanished this year. not a surprise. And foreign direct investments from China into America plummeted by 83% last year, 83%. Why? Well, this is what we've been telling you in the shows. It's a financial assassination program on this country. Pure and simple. Not coming from the Chinese government or the Chinese president, but the dragon groups and Rothschilds. Oh, not only are these Chinese firms drastically scaling back investments, but they have embarked on a record-setting wave of sales of real estate, hospitality and entertainment businesses. Including those sales, net Chinese foreign direct investment into North America turned negative in 2018 to the tune of $5.5 billion. Another $12 billion of Chinese assets around the world are expected to be sold this year also. So they're selling all their assets off to keep them going. That's the gist of this item. For those that says they've got nothing left, this is what they're doing. Collateralizing all their assets to keep themselves going. Well, those figures won't last long. And the evaporation of Chinese money in the United States reflects self-imposed restrictions by Beijing on investments outside the country. And the trend was exacerbated, though, because Washington had been tightening foreign investment reviews. Both of them courtesy of the Black Dragon Group. Now we've covered Mrs. May. She lost the vote by the highest margin ever of a sitting government on Brexit. Saying, oh my, let's create a new fear and doom porn. Fresh from their failure to deliver what they were planning on delivering in 2012 and again in 2016 with the 4-year loop. Now they've published its ideas for a $20 billion successor to the Large Hadron Collider and given the working name of Future Circular Collider. The Geneva-based Particle Physics Research Centre is proposing an accelerator that is almost 4 times longer and 10 times more powerful than the current one. And the aim is to have the FCC hunting for new subatomic particles by 2050. Now, critics of this say the money could be better spent on other research such as combating climate change. Yeah, right. But CERN's Director General Professor Fabiola Gianotti, nice mafia name there, described the proposal as a remarkable accomplishment. Really? You didn't accomplish much with the last one, did you? Trying to create portals and wormholes so you can escape out. Failed. Oops. You'll fail again. Save your money, save your energy, because the minute you start building it, we'll shut it down again. US Citibank has blamed the recent turmoil on global markets for a surprise drop in revenue. When you add in that we took all the bonds off them to not leave them in zero liquidity, you can add, you know where Citibank is heading. If you bank there, you're taking a risk. Wells Fargo also. And the fourth quarter revenue slipped 2% on nearly $500 million. They've lost. And the bank said its income on its bond trading desks, the bonds, has slumped by a fifth following the fluctuations on financial markets in December. No, it's got nothing to do with that. You didn't do the right thing and we took the bonds off you. But Chief Executive Michael Corbett said that the lender, which is America's third largest, was making solid progress. Not this year, you won't. So Citigroup was the first of the major US banks to post results in 2019. JP Morgan, Bank of America and Goldman Sachs are all due to issue fourth quarter figures later this week. They'll be similar. This is in the news, but it could also be in the intel. Federal agents posing as potential terrorists and munitions sellers arrested a Georgia man in a plot to blast his way into the West Wing of the White House with an anti-tank rocket. This is according to court papers and prosecutors today. And the name given out, which is typically a triple barreled name and typically a Muslim type name, Hasha Jalal Tahab, who is 21 years of age, from Cummings, Georgia, met with undercover agents yesterday and traded his car in for semi-automatic assault rifles, remote controlled explosives and grenades, and an anti-tank rocket. This is according to an FBI affidavit. He planned to blow out a door in the West Wing to gain entry, using as many weapons as possible to inflict carnage, according to the court papers. And he also told at least one agent that he wanted to fire a rocket at the Statue of Liberty. Unbeknownst to Taheb, the weapons he received on the back of a tractor trailer had been rendered inert by the FBI, and he was arrested within moments of obtaining the weaponry, according to prosecutors. And the investigation has started because of a tip given to law enforcement. So the tipster told authorities that the suspect had been becoming radicalised and changed his name. Sounds like an agent. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has asked President Donald Trump to reschedule his State of the Union address from later this month if the government remains shut, or he should deliver it in writing. Sadly, given the security concerns, and unless government reopens this week, Pelosi suggests that we work together. We'll have more on her later, to determine another suitable date after government has reopened for this address, or for you to consider delivering your State of the Union address in writing to Congress on January the 29th. That's what Pelosi wrote in a letter to Trump on Wednesday. The partial government shutdown was in its 26th day, officially the longest in history, after Trump had demanded $5.7 billion to pay for the wall along the US-Mexico border and vowed to veto any legislation that does not include the sun. Of course, Democrats now, with memory wipe syndrome, oppose the wall, and many of them voted for it until Trump got into office. Then it suddenly flips, and they are refusing to appropriate the money. And later, after sending the letter, Pelosi told reporters that the State of Union requires hundreds of people to work out logistics and security, and most of them have been furloughed or are working without pay because of the shutdown. The point is security, she said. Trump can make the speech from the Oval Office if he wants. security Pelosi. Oh my. Pelosi's talking about security. What about the security at the border, Pelosi? You know, the state that you are a congresswoman in, which you ignored. What about the security for the American people? You know, those people you are pretending to serve. Their thinking is about as useful as the various facelifts she's had. It just doesn't work. President Trump today abruptly denied military aircraft to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for a foreign trip just minutes before a congressional delegation was due to depart. Now, in a stunning response to her call to delay the State of Union address amid the government shutdown, in a curt letter, Trump said her trip had been postponed due to the shutdown, and I'm sorry to inform you that your trip to Brussels, NATO, Egypt, ISIS, and Afghanistan, NATO, and Langley 2-3 has been postponed. We will reschedule this 7-day excursion when the shutdown is over. In light of the 800,000 great American workers not receiving pay, I'm sure you would agree that postponing this public relations event is totally appropriate, Trump wrote. I also feel that during this period it would be better if you were in Washington negotiating with me and joining the strong border security movement to end the shutdown. Obviously, if you would like to make your journey by flying commercial, that would certainly be your prerogative. Yes, Mr. Trump. Trump also announced today that Treasury Secretary, fake Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, among others, would not be going to the World Economic Forum in the Rothschilds-led Davos, Switzerland. The group is going to attend the summit from January the 22nd through January the 25th, and Mr. Trump has now cancelled all American involvement in that meeting. Read between the lines. And essentially, this is what Trump told Mnuchin and Pelosi. Hi all, welcome back. I'm going to slip in some of the questions. I won't be answering all 43 from one email that I got this week. It's just people need to think better. Let's see what we can answer, or at least get through as many as possible. There's about 3 pages. I won't be on anywhere near that level, as I have too much to cover in the intel. How does urine therapy work? Well, essentially, you take a small amount of the very first pee you have in the morning and put it under your tongue, because the tongue has more receptors than the kidneys that flushes everything out. So all the toxic chemicals that go through your organs then come out of the pee, which then, because the tongue has a quicker receptor through to the brain then recognises the rogue chemicals and attacks it. That's how it works. The Red Queen went insane. How? She couldn't handle the frequencies, which was covered in previous shows. What does that mean? It means she went insane. She couldn't handle the frequencies. Do the parents have souls? Yes. Do they collect karma also? not quite. They live far too long. Do they reincarnate? No. Some of them are 150,000 years old. Same questions that are accepted applies to the Draco, Anunnaki, Archons and Mantids. All have souls. Archons not. Karma, yes, but they get the jinns, which may have another name as an Archon, depending on your standing on it, and get them to fulfill the karma. Do they reincarnate? Yes. Where? That's their choice. What exactly makes humans unique? Our DNA. It also depends on the individual as well. The biggest aspect is we have a capability that other species don't, is the multi-dimensional aspect. We can operate simultaneously on many planes and many universes. Did we build the planet? If not, who did? No, we didn't build the planet. The Creator built the planets. Who designed it? The Creator, Source. Are there more planets similar to this jewel of a planet? Not to my understanding, no. The difference is this planet has living water. So that's some of the 43 answered. Don't want to turn it into a one-person show. So let's see if we can answer some of other people's questions. I love the fact that the Manor World Holding Trust wants to forgive all our debts. Not correct. And pay us a living wage. Again, not correct. Or start-up money to open new businesses for the future. Correct. I wish people would listen more closely to what is being said. I did not say that the Manor World Trust was forgiving all our debts. The country's debt, yes. It's going through, it's erased the American debt to China, the so-called fake debt to the Federal Reserve. Both of those accounts are zero now. As for the people's debt, no one's ever said that that would take place. We certainly never mentioned the living wage. Let's leave them ones for now. Let's see if I can get through some ones more quickly. How can you tell if you have an organic soul? You know. Just know. There's a lot of widespread concern about a near-term major global financial collapse. Do you expect this to occur soon, and if so, when? It can happen any time. Whilst they continue to play games and deny the obvious solution to it all, because they want to keep the old system going, which has already failed, there is a danger of a global financial collapse. Everyone's bankrupt. We've said it many, many times now. The only reason some are getting paid in the American government, particularly over the last 10 months, is because of the trust. and yet the alt media by and large tends to ignore it. Still waiting for the non-existent RV, the Sims, dings and dongs and all that nonsense. It's never going to happen. Is the trust in a position to avert it or minimise it? We've done our best to avert it. We have certainly minimised it, but it does require more input from other people rather than just us. This is the stumbling block currently. I don't have any knowledge of SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, in the foreign aid, so I can't answer that question, sorry. APAC, the Israel Public Affairs Committee, let's leave the American out. The Zionist Bolshevik species, sometimes referred to as the Russian Israelis, they're neither Russian nor Israeli, and Khazarian. Let's call it right. Zionist, Khazarian. Nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with Russia either. That killed millions of Russian people are still in power, surrounding POTUS, rule the tech world, the government, the houses. High level of dual citizenship confirms. I don't hear this generally addressed and would like some discourse on the subject. Well, it's been discussed many times in this show. I think I've mentioned let's not attack Israel and its people, and let's label who the real problem is several times during the course of our shows, and I think I've mentioned it 2 or 3 times in the last 2 months. Too many people focus on Israel. Israel is not the real problem. It's the political ideology that's attached to the country of Israel. That's the real problem. Has any country succeeded without taxes or tribute from the people born and living here? America since 1934 has succeeded despite not receiving any taxes or any tribute from the people. None. This is how the media are spinning things. Oh, we're all going to die again. And this won't get funded and this won't get funded. No, there were plenty of things to fund when we cut out the clowns operating from what is now defunct and bankrupt Federal Reserve, harvesting the money out of this country and then charging the American people and the government 10% for every dollar borrowed, which they create those conditions where it requires borrowing every single year. So they claim their 10%. Meanwhile, they've collected all the income tax off the people and sent it to Rothschilds. So I would say America's done rather well on zero taxes. So please don't be going into fear when, if you don't pay your taxes, you won't get any of this, you won't get any of that. That's portal people bullshit, pure and simple. There'll be plenty of funding for American people without those taxes. Plenty. The spending tax will make sure of that. If HR 25 is implemented, what will the effect be for Europe, the rest of the world? Will everything will be covered up by our media government? I'm in Holland, but is there an effect that they cannot hide and will be out clear in the open for all to see and having a rippling effect on the peoples? The last portion you said on that is correct. Should that be signed off, then other countries are going to demand the same. It will have a ripple effect. Do you recommend we start we all start gardens to produce our own food, since some agendas seem to be moving forward quickly, and also try to move to the country to avoid 5G rollout. Well, I've answered 5G. Going forward, I think it would be useful if everyone started their own garden, given if they had sufficient space to do so. And we got rid of ridiculous laws where you are jailed or fined for having your own garden. It's beyond a joke. So yes, it's a good idea, but not because of 5G. 2 questions on submitting projects. Where do people submit their projects? thepeoplesclub.org. Do not expect a detailed response. There will be an acknowledgement that you've sent your proposal in. We don't have time, or I don't, to go through every proposal, but once the funding is implemented, then we have a team that will go through each proposal. Does it need a business plan? Yes. Will it be completely for non-profit? No. Any guides available for people to learn about requirements? Well, the requirements are being laid out by the shows. If it's going to create jobs, it's going to benefit the people, then it's likely to be accepted. If it's about personal stuff, although there will be funds for personal things, but obviously the bigger proposals will be looked into in more detail. So I hope that answers. How much money do we spend personally putting the proposal together? That's your choice. Will they accept an outline version? It depends on what you're proposing. Is it on point what they're looking for and get tossed aside, or do we get a call from them to discuss it? We haven't got time for that at this current time, but once the funding is delivered, then a team will look at each proposal, and we may call the ones who sent the proposal to ask for greater clarity or other details. I've listened to a few financial interviews regarding gold and silver, and I've heard that gold and silver not minted by the US may be confiscated. Should this be a concern? No evidence to support that information whatsoever. If the workers from the government are being paid even though there's a shutdown, who are the people on the streets calling for payments to stop the shutdown? Paid actors. Pure and simple. Seen it too many times now. Can the trust bring together and fund the genuine alt media and make it the media? It's potentially could, yes. Where are we? What are the effects of taking antidepressants on soul and astral level? It's a poison. All pharmaceutical medicines, I said that deliberately, are a poison to the system. All of them. Some have more effects in calling in the spirit realm, which is you don't want to do. You're advised that once a person's mental plane abilities are activated, you can never attack, only defend. But suppose you start to defend, does that not become an attack? No. One started the other, didn't it? If you defend it, you are defending. How is a defence an attack? Surely an opponent will attempt to frame it as such. Not on that level, it can't. It just can't. Where is the line drawn, and how is the determination made on an action being categorised and allowed as legitimate defence? On that level, there is no lies. Is it possible for someone on the mental plane to take someone still on the astral plane under mental protection? You can place protection around them, but not in mental protection. Two different things. Wondering if it's known what the outlook for the future of Facebook might be. Do we really care? We've got the MeWe now. Do we really care about Facebook? Do we really want all our data collected and algorithms created for adverts and child porn, child trafficking that's on Facebook? Why should we care? Create our own social media fact book. How is the economic outlook for 2019 from the lenses of yourself and the team? Are we heading for a financial recession crisis? It can go either way. It's very, very sensitive currently. Apart from centering, grounding and shielding daily practice, is there anything we can do to tune ourselves to its frequencies and be of assistance to Kim, yourself and the team? You can provide support. The biggest thing is keeping yourself 45, 55. Watch where your attention's going. Focus. You know, these may seem menial, but it's going to be important going forward. The world's going into chaos, and we need people with knowledge in 45, 55, calm and balanced state, discounting the fear porn, doom and gloom, and tuning into themselves. Thomas, can you review the process and status of the income tax collected since you guys took over the IRS and how it will be handled in 2019? We didn't take over the IRS, we stopped them from funding the Rothschilds. We stopped them from having access into the banks. It's up to the government to end them altogether. I haven't had time to look into the mud flood in Europe in reference to Tartaria. I may get one day. We'll see. Does Kissinger represent one of the dragon families? He's kind of someone who has his mucky paws in all kinds. Kissinger, very dark and very old soul, and very nasty as well. Are the dragon families trying to come off now as trying to help humanity to get in the good graces of the trust, knowing they've lost free access? Not particularly, no. They're doing anything and everything to stop us, to keep the old game going, except the old game's got nothing left. We did try and negotiate with all of them. It it's a complete and utter waste of time talking to retards. Please report on the various 187 countries and how they are progressing with fund distribution. I will not discuss fund distribution to any individual country, including America, apart from what has already been put out, as that puts those countries under threat. If I say X country received X, then the IMF and the Blackwater and other goons go round and end either the President, Prime Minister or the wife and children, which is what they've been doing. What are your views on the stock market? Not very good. It's all a big lie. It's all fake, all an illusion. The real stock market is not for public viewing. And the real stock market is unaware that there is a 4 to 7 second time lag in Wall Street to allow the upper echelon clowns to steal. So those who have their money in there, you do so at your own risk. I'm not advising one way or another. I'm not a financial expert. But you can see what's going on. Let's see, are we for time? Do you know any info or intel about the Bible and the New Testament, such as who and when it was compiled or written? 14th century, because it has the letter J in it, which wasn't there previously, and was written by King James, who, as you said in the question, was not a nice chap. No. Well, it doesn't really matter whether he was nice or not. The reality is, from the 1200s, under the Magna Carta, King John sold the whole of Britain and its people to the Vatican, or the Roman Catholic Church. So the whole country was at the behest of the Vatican Roman Catholic Church. So they did as they were told. Now, you mentioned, and I see the correlation of the Old Testament chronology and the clowns of Anu, Enki and Endel being worshipped as lords and gods. Exactly, the Lord is Anu. The rest of them are fake gods. Khazarian authors. No, that came out of the Vatican. But essentially, all religion starts with the Talmud, because they were the ones connected with those people at the time, which is Anu, Enki and Enlil and all the other merry band of Draco, including Marduk, the chosen ones. Of course, then you look into the just after King James wrote the new Bible, there was a famous hymn in the UK called Jerusalem, which some have asked to replace the current national anthem of God Save the Queen to Jerusalem. Maybe they were telling you there and then what they were going to do. And was Jerusalem builded here in England's green and pleasant land? Why would they write that? I told you. Final question, says Tommy. Apologies for the ones I didn't get to. we have more important things to discuss, I think, coming up. Where can THI members and others find documents which can serve as proof or verification that the Manor World Holding Trust is real? Well, there was the first public news item proving the Manor World Holding Trust exists and also has substantial funds to give to the countries via that Liberia article that was cited throughout this show, and also the Facebook and MeWe. It's rather difficult in some aspects to garner what people deem as proof. What would proof look like? A letter? A document? If so, which type? Can't documents and letters be forged? Would that still constitute proof? Now, some people seem to think you're not valid unless you've got a website or a blog to provide some validity, but the trust has neither. It doesn't have any website, it's not connected to any website other than THI, and also the Speak project and Tank puts out information occasionally at Kim's request. Now, the trust has been running for thousands of years, and it's only recently it's been shown that it exists via largely by this show, and this was the choice of the person and also the show the trust wanted to deliver the information from. After that, it's up to everyone else to decide whether the information we put out is valid or not. Now, I would have loved to have put out the sovereignty letter, which I've read out a few times, but it contains sensitive information on that letter, and that it applies from country to country. It's not the normal type of document an average person would receive. Now, it's the equivalent of the average person asking Angela Merkel or Mr. Trump or May or Macron, can they have access to their letters? They would clearly say no. But this show and our listeners have been given a peek into a world that too few get anywhere near to. Whether that is enough to satisfy everyone, that's unlikely, but we do try. But did anyone ask the Rothschilds, or Nelson Mandela, or Sukarno, or Marcos, or Gaddafi for proof of the trust? They were all trustees. Did anyone ask for proof of the Saint Germain Trust? And that was getting bandied around the internet. They could try, but having seen every trust that existed as part of the global trust, which is now known as the Manor World Holding Trust, Saint Germain was not on there. I read every single one. I've seen the most extraordinary documents: the original Constitution, the Council of Nicaea, the Creed, hidden acts of Congress going back over 100 years, and all the 6,500 trusts, the wealth that was contained within every single country, both asset-wise and every bank holding asset, and much more. The question then does not come down to, does the Manor World Holding Trust exist, but do you believe what I'm telling you? That is for you all to answer, not me. We're going to have a music break, and then we're coming back with some rather explosive. Hi all, and welcome back. Pin back your goals and listen closely. Judgment Day. We may look back on today as a key turning point. The last two news pieces, Trump telling Pelosi you're not going, and also Mnuchin, two very key rogue element figures. This intel is a kind of summing up of some of the things we've said in the shows about the country being hijacked, about the financial assassination attempt and being overtaken by mercenary groups. Listen closely. The US military have invaded the border of Panama and Colombia this week, following their invasion of Haiti and also Venezuela. And this is now in an attempt to blockade all oil deliveries into various countries, including America. Essentially, they are attempting to cut off all energy to countries to force them into staying in the old system, which on a broader picture has already failed, on a smaller picture is failing rapidly. We've mentioned in previous shows that the clowns are funneling stolen oil from Iraq and the Middle East into Venezuela with the help of FARC guerrillas operating from Venezuela, but also situated throughout Central America, and also migrant caravans. We have received reports coming from the ground in those countries that they are turning off the power to businesses and homes so that no reports come out, and they've also turned off all the oil pipelines to a trickle in those regions, including Mexico, to further close down those countries. Item 2. The President of Panama was forced to attend a meeting being held in Miami, Florida this week, and given threats and other instructions of what he has to do or comply with, or face all kinds of sanctions, threats and other attacks on his country. For those that don't know, Miami is the headquarters of the Blackwater Group. Yes, you, Mr. Eric Prince, and his band of mercenary goons. Seems he's now back here after his failed attempt to hand the trust back over to the clowns and the Rothschilds. His further failed attempt to take over the military theatre of operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria and Yemen. None of those theatres of war are what you have been told they are. None. Afghanistan was not because of bin Laden, but the fact that the Taliban group, who are a paid mercenary group of the cabal, ran by agencies within this country, went rogue on the cabal and closed down all the poppy field production in late 2001. America sent its sons and daughters to reopen those fields, and that was achieved within the first 3 months, and yet according to the media it took them 9 years to locate bin Laden. Funny that, isn't it? How they can open all the fields within 3 months and take 9 years to locate bin Laden. The greatest military in the world, that is imbued with the most sophisticated spying and location technologies, according to the Portal people anyway, that they couldn't find one man who was a former CIA operative known as Tim Osman. And when you add in the fact of the spying program known as Five Eyes, actually it's 9 Eyes, That in and of itself is a national embarrassment which no one was brought to book for. 9 years our sons and daughters were kept there to find bin Laden, with the most sophisticated technology in history. 9 years to find one man. But on one of their ritual sacrifice days, May the 1st, it's a sacrifice day, they allegedly captured him, killed him, and then transferred him to a warship, and his body was dumped into the sea before you could say autopsy. Is that the way things normally happen? Well, clearly not. So why don't so many people question that clearly bullshit narrative? The reality is bin Laden died in 2001, December, of kidney failure, with one of his handlers attending his deathbed. Yes, you, Donald Rumsfeld. All very pally, as they were friends, all playing the same game, you see. This is what I've warned about when I said the ring of the Gulf of Mexico. That includes north of South America and Central America and the islands. We'll have more on that. There's now gas shortages in Haiti, deliberate. Gas prices in Zimbabwe is now $12 per gallon, and people are rioting in the streets. There's a gas shortage in Mexico, and it's now becoming a national crisis situation. But it's important that the people in these countries understand this is nothing to do with America or Mr. Trump. Neither ordered these attacks. These were all done by the minions operating within the government, the agencies and the military, pushing the old failed regime to keep going. It won't work long term, but it will do short term damage. There's no question of that. There is a potential, as it stands now, for America to run out of oil and gas. Gas that goes in the cars. Because the military control the oil fields, the same ones that are doing the invasions. It's not our military. We've never had a military for 400 years. And whilst unpleasant, the conditions it creates, remember they can't keep repeating failed programs forever. Eventually they will run out of options. In essence, they have now, and using more extreme public measures now, but a knowledgeable public will at least get to see the hidden aspects of the old regime, making its death rattle. Next item. This invasion was not ordered by Congress or the Commander-in-Chief, Mr. Trump. Neither were consulted as per our Constitution, which regular THI listeners will know we don't have our own Constitution, but theirs. It's not the same. There are currently 4 constitutions floating around, and none apply to the people the way the people believe it to be. These invasions was ordered by NATO. This will again not surprise regular THI listeners, but with so many new listeners now, I have to add that in. America does not have a military, no matter what you've been told all your lives, and you are sending your sons and daughters to fight for rogue element groups that has nothing to do with freedoms, deleting so-called rogue regimes, or American interests, or the American people. And the American people have got to get this fact into their heads. Your military is ran and controlled by the Rothschilds, the SS small p, SS being the operative letters, and for those new, none of the SSP has any interest in we the people. None of them. No matter what other SSP paid agents like Randy Kramer, Corey Good and others tell you otherwise. The military is also run by the dragon groups. None of them are interested in humanity either, and I don't care which colour they are. None of them are interested in we the people whatsoever. Never have done and never will do. Then you've got the so-called Red Dragon ambassador, who's been written off people to the tune of millions in Europe. Where did the money go? Hong Kong HSBC. Oh my. Surprise, surprise. The main money laundering bag for the cabal in the East. No ifs or buts on that fact. None. This is the same bank that tried to leverage cash out of all the American banks, digital or otherwise, oil and gold, etc., to pull more fake money out to keep operating their failed system. And whilst we're on the Red Dragon ambassador guy, for those of you that don't remember or are new, he did an interview in December 2016 with Cobra, where he stated, quote, "The top guy at the head of the dragon groups is a reptilian," unquote. The question to be answered by the listeners is, since when have reptilians done anything beneficial for humanity? And the second question is, seeing as so many don't believe in reptilians, etc., is why are you following or giving money to a person who believes in that narrative? For those that don't know, NATO is Rothschild's private army, which you, the American people, are paying for by and large. The same applies to the UN. American people and funds have largely paid for that rogue enterprise. Word on the street is America will be pulling out of both NATO and the UN entirely in the near future. Gone. Ready? Next item. Here's where the shockwaves go out. We now have the full and corroborated evidence Nancy Pelosi and others are planning a 9/11 type attack on the Capitol building during the State of the Union, which she initiated in a bizarre letter this week to take place on January the 29th, with the intention to eliminate the President and the Vice President for her to become President by the end of this month. In a subplot, the blame would then be shifted onto ISIS, with the intention to then wipe out the Middle East and also force the troop withdrawal from Syria to stop. This is straight out of the Dick Cheney handbook. Where's the portal people now? Where's the outrage? This is what's going on, folks. I'll repeat that again, just so it sinks in. We have full and corroborated evidence Nancy Pelosi and others are planning a 9/11 style attack on the Capitol building during the State of the Union address, which she initiated this week, to take place on January the 29th, with the intention to eliminate the President and the Vice President, for her then as Speaker of the House next in line to become President by the end of January. The plot would then be shifted onto ISIS with the intention to wipe out the Middle East and then stop the troop withdrawal from Syria. Now that attack on the White House yesterday makes a bit more sense, doesn't it? Next item. Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, along with 109 lobbyists, held a top meeting, not in America, oh no, Puerto Rico over the weekend, of how to get rid of Trump and fully take over the country. Ignoring the fact that this was operating outside of government capacity. But why are the Democrats holding meetings in Puerto Rico about American interests without the approval of the President? Why? Because they are laying plans to oust him. And it's funny, back in September, Kim and I were about to be charged for treason in a bizarrely spun narrative of we were trying to overthrow the government. And yet Pelosi could waste taxpayers' money. Be interested to find out who paid for all that trip that they thought was in secret, on doing an overthrow of the government for real. Where are the patriots? Where are the people protecting the country? Who are you? But you're going to have to stand up, and quickly. Next item. Trump arranged another meeting this week to resolve the government shutdown and also the issues over the wall. And Pelosi and all the Democrats failed to turn up. Didn't bother. I don't care which party you support. This is a national disgrace, pure and simple. What would happen if you failed to turn up for work? Would you get paid? Would you get fired? Or both? And yet these vampiric parasites who are paid, according to popular opinion, to operate the government on behalf of we the people, can just refuse to turn up for work, but still get paid. All whilst the portal people, the media, say absolutely nothing. Now, following these two indiscretions by Pelosi, the bombshell that was added after that, after this, I wrote this piece, is it is clear Pelosi is not acting in American people's interests. Plus her failure to protect American people's safety in lieu of the border wall, plus her deliberate attempts to keep the government closed and costing many people their pay and putting their financial security at risk, plus trying to introduce a fake currency into America called the Treasury Reserve Note to replace the failed and bankrupt Federal Reserve Note at the behest of the Rothschilds, along with a dereliction of duty, where she can find time to flee to Puerto Rico and was scheduled to fly to Brussels, Egypt and Afghanistan none of which were beneficial to the American people, I might add. I'm going to set up a petition to have Pelosi and their cohorts ousted out of politics altogether for dereliction of duty. And once it's done, I'm again asking all the alt media to support and sign this petition. Whilst her and her cohorts hang around, everything that we want will be delayed. This is we the people letting them know we will not tolerate their rogue organisations or the people running it. Not only in this country, but these people are threatening, invading and ruining every other country as well. Next piece. I wrote this before the attempted coup and 9/11 style attack information came through, and this is my opinion, which is now being confirmed. Pelosi is running for president of America, or should I say the US, not America. Not in 2020, but now. This is their game. Pelosi and Hillary stitched up Mike Pence big time, and his ego ran with it. For people with short memories, this is only a few months ago, you will remember the Pence story. Get Trump out, in goes Pence. Except they played Pence and they have the dirt so that he wouldn't be selected either, leaving facelift woman, the Speaker of the House, next in line, or so they think. This is why the impeachment narrative is being pushed in the media, despite the fact that they can't get 2/3 of the votes to carry that out either way. So that is mute. Pelosi as president. Really? Oh. This is a woman who's been a representative of La La Land, better known as California, since 1987. Has California improved or got worse in that time? Progressively worse, bordering on murderous, I would say. Riddled with debts, death, false flags, sales to Chinese, dragon groups, zero border controls, riddled with gangs, some of which her party members paid to come in. Yes, hello. With guns supplied to them by another Democrat, Eric Holder, in Operation Fast and Furious, no doubt. Add in droughts, weather wars, higher home and rent prices forcing people out. Then when that doesn't happen quick enough, they burn people out. That is Pelosi's legacy as a politician in one state. And she and others think she's capable of looking after 50? Really? No thanks. Go and retire, you incompetent, completely insane old bag. Unbelievable. Whilst everyone's struggling, people in the government are not getting paid. Pelosi's just borrowed another $5 million from a bank to extend her wine property in the St. Helena region of California. I totted up her liabilities. It's near 40 million. Which bank lends someone who earns less than $200,000 a year 40 million? But it's funny that Hearst and Rothschild's winery never burnt down in the fires, isn't it? So whilst Pelosi gets paid and can afford a $5 million credit extension, the people in the government are getting zero pay. Neither is Mr. Trump, I might add. He hasn't accepted a single cent of his presidential salary. Pelosi is beyond a disgrace to this country. Her record before a recent appointment was appalling and did not warrant her elevation at 78 years of age into a high-profile position based on her working skills, as they are just not there. Now, she's the next puppet, as Hillary got badly exposed and was pushed aside, as this show warned would happen 3 months back. Next intel. MS-13 gangs were sent to this region on Monday to attack Kim and the team again. Kim was in, and some of the team were in meetings and had to flee. Now, the MS-13, along with the FARC guerrillas that Pelosi and her crew allowed to pour through the southern border to attack the American people at the request of the clowns and supported by the clowns' party of choice, the Democrats, plus some in the Republican Party also, so it's not all one-sided. But Kim managed to escape unharmed. These are what happens when you're on the front line, and why I get pissy with stupid questions asking for plans and operations, or being sent stupid court documents saying Kim was in court. Yeah, a divorce court document. What use is that? Why bother searching for it? What is the purpose? And we thought that was bad enough. We had another attack last night. Kim had to flee again. This time on the request of John Von Wright, the new Pindar. Thankfully, Kim and the team are safe. Rumour has it Mr. John Von Wright will not last long in that role. They have another replacement lined up. Oh my. Final intel. Zimbabwe is considering a new currency for their country. So before the RV currency clowns all jump up and down where it's happening, and the Zims are revaluing, sorry to burst your bubble, but no, they're not, and will never revalue like the paid agents of the Rothschilds, Chinese elders, dragon groups have been bullshitting you with for years. A brand new currency will replace the old Zim currency, and that old currency will become null and void. All like I said back in late 2013 and 2014. We've been duped into a repeated scam like the dinars, which they knew would become valueless and they sold them all off to you with the lure of great riches. An all too common theme, an all too common seducement that we the people fall for far too many times. We have to stop doing that. The latest repeat scam is cryptos, bitcoins et al. Again, people have fallen for it. But if cryptos are valid and will buck the cabal system, according to some, why is the corrupt and bankrupt IMF telling 134 countries to scrap their currencies and go crypto? We have to think beyond the riches and think sensible. I'll be back with some op-ed pieces. More mentions of Pelosi. You didn't think we could get worse than that. Word on the street, this witch is far worse. Hi all and welcome back. That Intel has been building up over certainly the last 5 or 6 weeks. The Intel portion has closed down in most respects because of plans ongoing, threats ongoing, and of course we're busy pushing back. It's not as if we're sitting there waiting for those clowns. But this country, as you can now see, is under severe attack. They're planning to kill, in any way, shape or form, and oust the president of this country. To the American people, it's time you ditched your party flavour. This is not about parties. This is about good and evil, light and dark, new system, new hope, new ways, new jobs, more money in your pocket, not theirs, compared to a failed old system that is now reduced to threats. With the things that we've worked out between the trust and the government, and in other countries, I might add, many other countries, this country and subsequently many other countries will have a much brighter future. Prosperity will abound. People can go and work in jobs that they choose to work in, not are forced to work in. And all that is being stopped by rogue elements, largely from the Democratic Party, who are not democratic in any way, shape or form once you find out their real history. Their protection arm is the KKK, remember? And they have the audacity to call Trump a Nazi. If you support Democrats, you are supporting genocide. You are supporting the death of your own country. You are supporting child trafficking, child sex slavery, child organ harvesting. You are supporting false flags on the American people. These people in the top end of the Democrats, and there's some in the Republican. Yes, you, Mr. Pence. and you at the top end of the Pentagon and the top end of the military. I don't care how many badges you've got. Not one of them were earned with honour. Real honour is supporting your own people. Not Rothschilds or SSP, Nazi-style breakaway goons, or pushing Pelosi into new levels of incompetency and evil, like you did with Hillary. You've got to make a choice, and you got to make it quickly, because you won't be getting paid. I can guarantee that. Do you think the trust is giving you money to genocide the American people and its economy? Think again. To the people in the lower ranks in the military, walk out. I don't want to hear about subordination. You have an oath to protect this country and its people, not Rothschilds or fake Chinese elders or fake dragon groups. An obligation and a duty to protect the American people, you know, the ones in your own family. Have you all forgotten that? You people in the military are the problem in this country, because you have the ability to fix it by the end of the month. All of it. But no, let's cowardly bow down to the generals who bow down to the gods who they think the Rothschilds are. No. If you're a real American patriot, you walk away. No ifs or buts. No hiding behind insubordination and all that rubbish. Your country is under attack. Pure and simple. You can carry on in Afghanistan, making sure the poppy fields are open to supply more funds to the evil and rogue elements in this country and mercenaries. Yes, you, Eric Prince. To decimate the American people, like the SSP did to California, like the SSP did to Alaska, like the NATO Nazis did with the explosions in the northeast 2 or 3 months back. Don't call yourself a patriot. Be one. And as for the portal people, oh my. Boycott it. Hammer their Twitters. Shut them down. We don't need their lies. None whatsoever. Between them and the military are running this country into the ground. I don't care whether people like Trump or not. It matters not. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. Trump's not a Republican. I might add. He's just not. He's independent. In case you haven't worked that out. So don't get all sanctimonious about being Republican. They know better. But there's been no press witch hunt for Pelosi or Democrats, has there? like Trump's had to endure, allowed to say the most outrageous statements, make threats and distortions about the president of their country with no recall, no questioning of why or the validity of their statements, no questioning of their support for the wall before Trump got into office, but now they oppose it. No. But isn't that what real journalists are supposed to do? Question things. And if so, why is it all one-sided? Why are you pushing a 2-year-old failed narrative every week? Russia, Russia, Russia. How about Pelosi, Pelosi, Pelosi? Or Hillary, Benghazi, Uranium 1? Or Obama, Muslim Brotherhood 3, letting FARC guerrillas and MS-13 in through California? How about the fact that he's not even American? Or about the fact that Hillary is operating the Blue Dragon Group, not in America, no, the UK. How about you cover that? How about you cover HR 25? Oh no, we can't do that. We all know why this group, the Portal people, cover the news the way they do. They're in bed with the cabal, pure and simple, all bought and paid for. Well, it's time for all alt media, and I mean all of us, to boycott every single mainstream media news outlet. I don't care whether you like Fox or whatever, they're no different. Let them know we don't want their bullshittery anymore. Enough's enough. They're brainwashing vast quantities of American people's minds with the most corrupt, deceitful lies and drivel ever heard, whereby over 80% of the American people are not even aware we have no American National Bank, or 90% plus don't know the IRS is not an American company, does not disperse the so-called taxes to the American government. Why haven't these so-called journalists disclosed these basic facts to the people? Well, if they're not providing a service, make sure we don't have a service. Shut them down. Bombard the Twitter, bombard the blogs, call them out. They're damaging each and every person in this country with their lies. They're covering up criminality on a massive scale. And all they can turn round is and blame Trump for the shutdown, blame Trump for Russia, whilst Mnuchin, Obama and Hillary sold uranium to Russia. I was sent something this week. It's kind of light-hearted, and it involves the cat again. Oh my. The religion of the holy cat is from Egypt, which I have said in previous shows. Look at the word of that religion, or the holic, like alcoholic, indicating a person having an abnormal desire for or dependence on. And when you put holic with cat, then you see where it comes from. So the question is the Holy See really S-E-E or S-E-A? Or is it symbolising the letter C, as in the holy cat? which is highly prevalent in Egyptology, which is where that animal came from. Now the word holy in French, which is predominantly Latin, means saint, which has a far more earthly based connotation than what is described as holy. People will know the family St. Clair, which was Sinclair. And given these elements of society seem to think they are above and beyond everyone else, with titles and all kinds of fake honours, etc., is the word holy just another title of a group of people who have elevated opinions of themselves? The Holy Bible, the Holy See, Catholic. To add to that piece, I was watching a series on Cleopatra and the story of Egypt and Rome, which appears to echo all the elements of the Bible in regards to royalty, decadence and debauchery, thrown in with a whole heap of incest. Then I remembered the theory that Mark Antony was put forward as the person known as Jesus, and how Rome and Egypt both aligned. It certainly fits the timeline of events according to their history anyway. But I got thinking about the term royals, and in particular what is classed as the main royal around the world now, because she's head of the Commonwealth. She's also head of the Social Security in America. Oops. And the term ER, which they say is about Elizabeth Regina. Now Elizabeth is her name. Reg means king and Regina means queen. So it all fits. Elizabeth Queen. But one wonders whether ER really means a marriage of Egypt and Rome. The cat, the Sphinx, the Phelinoids, the serpent, and Rome with its holy Catholic. I can feel the cat police prodding me in the back of the head now. History will show. It always does. The topic of past life memory and recall came up recently, and the consequences of it can be kind of wide-ranging. Many will have had some sort of recall of their past, but dismissed it as a coincidence or deja vu. Now, the topic of retaining memories of all past lives has been under discussion on the highest levels, and has been for a number of years. And the question was, should all the memories be returned to the beings who were sent through the memory wipe technology and then recycled back onto the planet with no recall, no knowledge of soul progression, and back to the level of kindergarten in its reincarnation? Now, the problem with humanity is it holds on to the negative frequencies of pain, trauma, death, carnage and loss, rather than the memories of triumph, pleasure, compassion, camaraderie, soulmates, love and bliss. Now, this reaction, whether it's just a byproduct of being here or it's something on a deeper level, is yet to be disclosed. But we hold on to the negative low vibrational frequencies far more than the beneficial higher vibrational frequencies and experiences. dis-ease like PTSD, which is generally applied to war trauma events. But why do we not have a 4-letter acronym of positive events in our lifetime? Like love, marriage, children, grandchildren, friendship, caring and sharing elements. Why is there no focus groups on that? Surely that's a more pleasant experience and memory than always going over the trauma events. So with that background, and having many in the alt media community have faced blocks in their lives, targeting, psychic attacks, ridiculed by society, the question is, how would retaining past life memories be in too many ways beneficial? Some like the idea that they will be told that there was something special or important in previous lives, like they were a king or a queen, or some other form of royalty, or Ra, or Greek or Roman god, Solomon, Jesus or Mary Magdalene et al. But this is pure, imbalanced ego thinking, which has no bearing on today's struggles or life paths. All that is about, look at me and how important I was, and I should be honoured for being important. No. Like I've said many times, it's far more important to do important things now than be important in past lives. Create your own legacy in the here and now is the path forward. Like Kim. Has she gone round saying, I was this, that and the other, I'm this bloodline, I was this royalty, I have this status? No. She's just being Kim. And that's more than enough. High-level discussions about how many lifetime memories should be restored once certain conditions have been completed have been discussed, and the consensus is just one, of which I support. Too many people who do recall past lives have been totally thrown off balance in this lifetime to even consider more than one. Traumas of trying to save many people's lives in war zones, refugee status, war, destruction, loss of habitat, loss of loved ones, and loss of their home world, have not been kind to people who have remembered those circumstances. I know that personally from observing our own members, never mind others afar. People riddled with guilt because they couldn't save more, couldn't do more, and the great sense of loss runs very deep through the psyche of those with memories. Why is that? Why is it very few have recalled memories of happy lifetimes? Of those that have been relayed to me, at least. No, it's all disaster and war, trauma. Given all that, how would you feel if suddenly you remembered all that? Would you cope? Can you handle the impact of maybe you didn't do the right things in previous lives that had major impacts on the lives of others? Is it not burden enough remembering the negative impacts and processing of this lifetime without adding more? But if you were given a vote which technically you have on a subconscious level. How would you vote if asked? None? One lifetime? Two or all? Something you should all ponder on. Because like I said, it has been discussed when certain conditions are prevalent to do so. Final piece tonight. Yet again, the portal people creating division where there should be none. During a guest radio appearance, a CNN legal analyst said to the show host, who is black, that he had benefited from white privilege. The segment that aired on Tuesday during a Sirius XM show hosted by David Webb, who is also a contributor at Fox News. His guest during the segment was Areva Martin, who is a civil rights attorney and a CNN legal analyst. Not very bright then, is she? And according to the clip posted to Twitter, Webb details his rise in the media, saying he always saw his qualifications as a more important issue than his colour. Well, David, that's a whole nother long conversation about white privilege, the things that you have the privilege of doing that the people of colour don't have the privilege of, said Martin. Mr. Webb then asks how he benefits. Martin then said, by virtue of being a white male. At which point Mr. Webb says, I hate to break it to you, but you should have been better prepared. I'm black, said David Webb. He then went on to scold Martin for making the assumption, going through his qualifications, ultimately leading to Fox News, where I'm told apparently blacks aren't supposed to work. It's this type of rhetoric that's only serves division of the people. The perceptions fed to a gullible public largely in the world of divide and conquer. Do people really still think on these levels? And if so, why? Yes, black people suffered badly in the past, but the reality fact is, so did white, and so did every other colour peoples as well. And all this bullshit of my suffering is worse than your suffering serves no purpose except to keep you in low vibration, pure and simple. I could reel off a load of figures of white people working to support people of colour, the benefits packages that are steered away from the so-called white privilege, and how historically white people pay most of the taxes. They are all facts. But what purpose would it be to ram those facts down people's throats? None. People thinking white privilege need to look around and focus less on themselves and their fellow peoples of colour. What part of it's the system do you people not get? Not the colour of the skin, the race, gender or creed, or the government either. It's the system that created your perceived opinions and the system that created the situations for it. Yes, the system is predominantly made up of white Europeans. But what happens to those people of colour who make it to the top echelons of society? Like Obama. I asked the black people, what did he do for you in his 8 years in office? Nothing. In terms of help or support, that's a certainty. Nothing. But maybe he taught you all a dark lesson. You have to do something for yourselves and your people. Because once your people reach the top, you can guarantee they will do nothing for you. Kanye West, Tupac, the multitude of black sportsmen. In fact, is it not the case that most of the American sports are all predominantly black oriented? And we all know they're earning vast sums of money. Oprah Winfrey, Morgan Freeman, Bill Cosby, I could go on and on and on. But what did they do with their wealth? Did they help your communities, where most of them came from? Create teaching programs to get people of their own colour on a better footing? Help the poor? Help with the drug, drink or prostitution problems? Some may have. But has it changed anything? Are the black communities still operating like ghettos? Why don't the people in the community clean their own area up? Why is that a white man's problem or a privilege? Should you not be proud of your own region? It doesn't cost nothing to pick a piece of paper up or litter, or to tell children not to spray paint the walls or vandalise your own area. Doesn't matter what colour you are. But you can't carry on blaming all of your ills on white people when your own people have done way more damage to your people than you realise. Go and check out Dane Calloway's YouTube channel. That guy calls it as it is, and he's black. The gist of the matter is you haven't looked after each other enough. That's the top and bottom line. You can spend your whole lifetimes pointing blame on others, and this applies to all colours and all people. We can spend the rest of our lifetime pointing the blame on others, or drop it and deal with the issues at hand and strive to improve conditions in your own communities. Extra funding thrown into a situation will only help, but it'll only help if the mindset has changed. And it is this aspect that is the foundation of this show. Yes, we know the cabal have done this and that to us, but let's not forget we all went along with it, either by ignorance or fear. When people say, ooh, we can't take on the cabal, they're too big and powerful, so we turn on the weaker ones and moan about them. That's cowardly behaviour. The problem we all face is our own mindsets. Our levels of thinking are too shallow. For a black person to turn around and say white privilege, you really haven't learnt much. Our levels of change, of being change, is too shallow. Our levels of wanting others to fix everything for you whilst complaining about Big Brother, big government and the Illuminati is both shallow and also highly contradictory. It's one thing arguing with the other. Get them to fix it. That means you're not in control of it. You fix it. You're in control. Our levels of support for each other is too shallow. Our love for one another is too shallow. Our desire for fame and wealth is also too shallow. Money is the be-all and end-all. That's shallow thinking. Our desire to trample over everyone to reach the perceived top of the core pirate ladder is also shallow thinking. Because one day you'll fall and those people trample on you. It's the way life goes. What goes around comes around. Our support of nature, animals and the plant life is too shallow. Our apathy is too shallow, sadly, as well. That runs deep. All of those aspects we can correct within and around ourselves. Can we not? Can we not be the beacon of hope? Can we not be the change? Can we eliminate big government by taking responsibility for ourselves? Can we learn to get along with people of different colour? Can we unlearn the lies that has created much of the divide and conquer? Can we build a community that is supportive of each other, that shows inner strength? Absolutely. And the reason why is in the final song. I hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. It's fairly heavy, but you're left under no illusions now of where we're at. Given the severity of what's going on, there may be more shows between now and Thursday. We'll have to see. But I think we can win this battle. In fact, I don't think, I know. But it takes us all to get involved. That includes you in the military, you in the Pentagon, you in Langley, etc., etc., and you in the White House and Congress, regardless of parties. Be the change. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.